The New York Times recently released their 10 best books of 2024, 5 books of fiction, 5 books of nonfiction, and I have some opinions. One main opinion in particular. And if you've been here before, hi friends, you know exactly what I'm going to say. First of all, in the comments, tell me what you think of this list. I'll leave a link to it if you haven't seen it yet. Take a look at the list. Let me know what you think. Are these books you've read? Are they books you're interested in? I'd love to know. So let's pull up the list itself before we go any further. Okay, I'm gonna share the list. Here we go. All right. First up, under fiction, we have All Fours by Miranda July, and that's published by, okay, interesting. I don't think they include the publisher here. Yeah, no, there are no publishers named anywhere here on this article. Okay, I wonder why. I guess we'll have to, so you have to click on the link to buy the book, and then that takes you to an external site like Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and then you can see the publisher from there. So let's do that. Okay, so All Fours by Miranda July is published by Riverhead Books. Good Material by Dolly Alderton is published by Knopf. James by Percival Everett, great book, published by Doubleday. Martyr by Kaveh Akbar is published by Knopf. You Dreamed of Empires by Alvaro Enrique, translated by Natasha Wimmer. Great to have a translated book on this list of 5 fiction books, and this is one I've actually wanted to read. I've heard a great interview with the author. That's published by Riverhead. And then nonfiction, we have Cold Crematorium, Reporting from the Land of Auschwitz by Joseph Dabracheni. I'm not going to be able to say that last name right. Joseph Dabracheni, translated by Paul Olchavari, also going to struggle with that pronunciation. So that's translated nonfiction, which is really cool, and but sounds like a really intense and important book. That's published by St. Martin's Press. Everyone Who Is Gone Is Here, The United States, Central America, and the Making of a Crisis by Jonathan Blitzer, published by Penguin. That's another one I would really be interested in reading. I Heard Her Call My Name, A Memoir of Transition by Luce Sante, published by Penguin, is one that for sure has been on my radar and I would love to read. Reagan, His Life and Legend by Max Boot, published by Liveright, and The Wild Wide Sea, Imperial Ambition, First Contact, and the Fateful Final Voyage of Captain James Cook by Hampton Sides, published by Doubleday. That's one that also sounds really interesting and fun. So that's a really cool list. I love this list. It covers like a huge range of topics, really great books that have been on my radar that sound wonderful. But let's go through that list one more time. Just one more time, super, super quick. Okay, so again, we have All Fours, published by Riverhead, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. Good Material, published by Knopf, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. James, published by Doubleday, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. Martyr, published by Knopf, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. You Dreamed of Empires, published by Riverhead, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. Cold Crematorium, published by St. Martin's Press, imprint of Macmillan. Everyone Who Is Gone Is Here, published by Penguin Random House. I Heard Her Call My Name, published by Penguin Random House. Reagan, published by Liveright, an imprint of W.W. Norton, and The Wide Wide Sea, published by Doubleday, an imprint of Penguin Random House. So if you are counting, that is 8 out of 10 from Penguin Random House and their imprints. Penguin Random House is the biggest of the big 5 conglomerate publishers. There's one book on here from Macmillan, which is another big 5 publisher. There's one book from Liveright, which is an imprint of Norton, which is a large employee-owned independent publisher and is an awesome publisher, by the way. But they just so happened to publish the book on here that is least interesting to me, but whatever, I'm just one reader. All 5 fiction books, all five fiction books are published by Penguin Random House and its imprints. All 5. The parent company of Penguin Random House is Bertelsmann, which is an international conglomerate media company based in Germany, if you're not aware. This is tricky. This is really tricky. You know, I looked at this list. I wasn't surprised to see that almost all of the books on this list, 9 out of 10 of these books on this list are from big 5 publishers. Not at all surprised to see that. A little bit surprised to see that all 5 fiction books are from Penguin Random House and its imprints. A little bit surprised. But again, it's tricky. If you've been here before, you know I talk about small presses, nonprofit, and independent publishers here on this channel. That's what I love to read. That's what I want more people to read, as many of you here who join me here all the time. That's what a lot of what you read too. But my goal is not like to discourage anyone from reading these 10 amazing books. My goal is not to judge these books or anybody who reads these books and loves these books. I don't want to say these books aren't amazing or worthy of being on this list, and I especially don't want to say that these 10 authors don't deserve wide readership, because there are authors on here who absolutely deserve every reader, every penny, and we should be singing their praises. Based on what I know about their books, they are incredible and have really important things to say. I have read one on this list. I've read James, which is somewhere back over here. I've read James by Percival Everett. Awesome, amazing book. Everyone is loving that book. But here's what bugs me. I want it to be easier to see who has published these 10 books, because the New York Times does not make it easy to see who the publisher is. You have to click to buy the book before you can see who published it. And that's curious. Like, why? Is that because they think it clutters the article, or does it have something to do with the fact that 5 out of 5 of these fiction books are published by the same parent publisher company? It's just curious. So I really don't know what to think. I'm someone who constantly plays devil's advocate against myself. And so, yeah, all sorts of things are running through my head. And most of what I want most of all is to know what you think about this. Do you care? Do you think it's important? What are your thoughts? Is Penguin and its imprints truly publishing the best books out there? Are they that good? Or is there something else going on here? Is it just that they have a bigger marketing budget, so they're able to get these books in front of more critics and readers and bookstores and, the whole lineup of important people it's that you got to get a book in front of because they have more marketing budget? Or do they have the deepest pockets and therefore are able to actually attract the authors who really are the most noteworthy, best authors writing right now? Do they have the most connections at the New York Times? I want to know what you think. What is going on, and does it matter? I tried to think through parallels in other industries where like this, you could see something like this happening or not happening. So for example, you see lists of top restaurants in a given year, like top restaurants in New York in a given year. Can you imagine if all of those restaurants were owned by the same restaurant group? Like, I can't imagine people being okay with a list like that. Or top films of the year. There are lists on the New York Times of the top films of the year. And there too, they don't share like right up front what the film studios are. I know nothing about films. I'm really out of my depth. But I looked at the list and I kind of poked around, and I don't think they're all being produced by the same studio. Or top albums. Like, can you imagine if all the top albums were from the same record company? I don't know. I don't know that world. Like, are these record companies all owned by the same conglomerate? I have no idea. Maybe that is the case, and I just don't know. But I just was trying to picture other industries where I just don't think people would be okay with it. Even consumer products. Like, I was thinking, I love makeup. I love watching makeup stuff. So I was like, well, what if there's a list of the top makeup products in a year? You can imagine a large percentage of those would be from companies owned by L'Oreal, which I think is the largest makeup company. I'm not sure, but I think you can imagine a lot of them being owned by L'Oreal. But all of them? I'm not sure. I feel like there's a lot of indie makeup companies out there that are kind of making a big splash, or even like celebrity companies, makeup brands that are making a splash that might be on that list. At the very least, transparency would be nice. It would be helpful. My understanding is that imprints in these very large publishing companies run with a very fair amount of independence. They run basically as their own publishing entity, publishing company. They have their own editors, they have their own acquisitions teams. I think sometimes they're even competing, to hire on the same authors, like within a parent publishing company. So a book from Knopf is from an entire different team than a book from Doubleday or from Riverhead. But ultimately, it's still Penguin Random House. So out of curiosity, I checked out the article of the New York Times 100 most notable books of 2024. And I looked only at fiction because it was a long list already. And actually the fiction section is actually fiction and poetry, which, okay. There are 53 books on that list. So remember, of the top 10, 90% of the top 10 were from big 5 publishers. 80% were from Penguin Random House, and 100% of the top 5 fiction books were from Penguin Random House and its imprints. Looking again at the 53 fiction and poetry from the top 100 books, of those 53 books, 75% are from big 5 publishers and their imprints. 75% of 53, including 43% from Penguin Random House and its imprints. So 43% of 53 are from Penguin Random House and its imprints, 20% from Macmillan and its imprints, and 6% each from HarperCollins and Simon & Schuster and their imprints. So that's better. That's a little better than 100% of fiction from Penguin Random House. So that leaves 13 books out of 53 from indie presses, which includes 3 books each from Grey Wolf and Grove Press, and 1 book each from Melville House, New Directions, Norton, Pushkin Press, Catapult, Europa Editions, and Fantagraphics. None of these are particularly under the radar indie presses. In fact, they're exactly the kind of indie publishers that I expected to see on this list. Presses like Grove, Catapult, and Norton publish what I tend to see as more mainstream fiction. In my opinion, I even look at even their covers, and I feel like it's hard to distinguish their covers from some of the covers that are being put out and designed by big 5 publishers and their imprints. You know, you have some small presses where they have very distinctive covers because they want you to identify that it's coming from that press. And then I think you have some small presses that are competing for that mainstream attention. And so their cover design is a bit more similar to the covers you see from big 5 publishers. And so really they're just putting themselves out there and saying, we're competing directly for mainstream attention. Our books are right up there with, you know, the books you're seeing from big 5 publishers. Publishers like New Directions and Grey Wolf are so very highly respected and get attention all the time for their work that they put out of very high literary merits. So it is not at all surprising to see them here. They're very well-known independent publishers. All 3 Grey Wolf books are poetry, however, which is interesting, which, you know, they are renowned for their poetry, so it's fine. It's fine. I just think it's interesting that the label says fiction for these books and then it's fiction and poetry. So anyway, these 2 lists won't add much of anything new to the national and global bookish conversation about literature that has been published in 2024. These are all books you've seen before, and I guess that's kind of the point. And I guess it all comes down to your definition of the word notable, because that's what they call the list of 100 books. It's 100 notable books of 2024. And Merriam-Webster tells me that notable can either mean worthy of note or distinguished and prominent. And I'd argue that maybe the New York Times is more concerned with the prominent side of notable. And there are all sorts of economic and cultural and social forces that determine whether a book achieves prominence within a cultural discussion within the market. There are all sorts of forces that determine prominence within the market, and prominence doesn't only come down to being worthy of readers' attention. Though of course the word worth also has all sorts of connotations, you like monetary worth versus literary worth. That's a subject maybe for a video on another day. But at the end of this day, I am not particularly surprised, nor am I particularly discouraged. It only means that those of us who want something a little bit different than what's on lists like this might have to do a little more digging than the average bear. And that's really why we're here together. This community is amazing for helping each other find great books. Not because we don't like or don't want to read those books that are getting more attention, but because we know what treasures live just a little bit below the surface of mainstream attention. We know the hidden gems that are there, and we're willing to put in that little extra digging to unearth them. And maybe, just maybe, we wish that a venerable institution like the New York Times might do just a little bit extra digging as well. Just a thought, just a thought. Check out some of my other videos or my newsletter, which I'll link to below, if you are interested in finding those more hidden gems right alongside me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to read your thoughts in the comments. I'll talk to you later. Bye.